Hello my beautiful friends. So today is July 31st and I wanted to go ahead and sit down to film my July wrap-up video. So this is going to be all of the books that I ended up reading in July of 2020, and I'm really excited to share with you guys my thoughts on these books. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys would like to see this video, then just continue watching. So this month was the first month that I did an actual TBR. If you didn't see that video, I'll put the link to that somewhere on the screen. But I wasn't actually sure whether I was going to be able to finish all the books that I put on my TBR, so I gave myself a very small list so that I wouldn't be disappointed basically by the imminent failure that I would most likely end up being. Come to find out, I'm actually really good at reading and I ended up reading a lot more books than I even put on my TBR. So the first two books that I'm going to mention are two books that I chose to read for the Reading Rush Readathon. I decided to do it really short notice, like literally a couple days before the readathon was going to start. So I wasn't really expecting to like finish it. I wasn't gonna be like super hard on myself because again, these were extra books that I was adding into my TBR that were on top of the books that I already had picked. I just realized that I am not a readathon person. Also, in light of the current events that have transpired from the Reading Rush Readathon, I'm even more just not mad about the fact that I didn't finish it. The two books that I decided to read were Cinderella is Dead and Anna K. So I finished Anna K a couple days after the readathon ended, but I did read Cinderella is Dead at the beginning, and I also did vlog a little bit while I was doing the readathon, so I'm gonna try to put that into a video sometime in the near future. So Cinderella is Dead is basically a retelling of the Cinderella story. I personally love retellings of specifically like fairy tale stories, but also just like any kind of story in general. It's interesting because the two books that I picked were kind of like retellings of other stories. Basically, it's about a girl named Sophia, and she is living in a place where they basically uphold Cinderella's story as their like Bible, essentially. Basically, Cinderella is like this entity who they all look up to and aspire to be like. They have a prince, is he a prince or a king? I don't actually remember, who holds a ball every year, and basically the whole point of this ball, and this kind of gave me vibes of like the Grace year. Basically, the goal is to get chosen after 3 times, or else you're basically fucked. She is very against this idea and this system that's been created for her, and she doesn't want to follow the norm of what's been expected of her. One thing that I was really excited about, or two things that I was really excited about, was the fact that she is a person of color. I haven't really read a retelling that has the main character as a person of color, so that was something that I was really excited about. And then also the fact that she is from the LGBT plus community made my soul very happy inside, and would have been extremely pleasing to me if I had read this when I was growing up. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't impressed with the book at all. I could not remember her name for the life of me. And for some reason, she just wasn't a character that resonated in my mind. There was another character that was kind of alongside her that I feel like I would have appreciated learning more about her story than I felt about the main character's story. It just felt very predictable, but not like in a good way. Again, it was very reminiscent of Dorothy Must Die in certain specific ways, and just like a retelling of a fairy tale story in general. I've read so many of them, but I like when there's a little bit of a twist, and the things that were the twist were kind of underwhelming to me. There were definitely good things about it. I really liked the representation, the love interest that was in the book. I might have been in love with her. I literally wrote down when I was trying to make notes, I was like, do I want to be her or do I want to be with her? I think it's probably both. I think I ended up giving it like 3 out of 5 stars, which is very low for me. I tend to be very generous with my ratings, but that one just fell very flat for me. The next book that I ended up reading, I was actually really surprised about the way that I felt about it, was Anna K. This is a retelling of Anna Karenina. When I had previously watched this movie a while ago, because I've pretty much seen every Keira Knightley movie because I have been obsessed with her for as long as I can remember, I really enjoyed the movie. I don't really remember it, to be perfectly honest, which I'm totally fine with. I would love to read the book in the future. This is basically a Anna Karenina retelling, kind of in modern teen Gossip Girl style times. And that's the way that I heard it described by another booktuber, and that just roped me in. When you say Gossip Girl, I'm like, yes, yes. No questions asked. Something about seeing rich kids and their shenanigans just is very entertaining to me. I was excited to read it as kind of like, you know, a filler book in between other books that I was reading, and something that would just be like entertaining. Pleasantly surprised, one, by the representation and the diversity in the book. There was a black male character who was adopted by a Jewish family. So Anna K and her brother are half Korean and half white. That was an interesting detail in the plot because it played a role in the differences between the ways that her brother was treated by her parents and the way that she was treated by her parents. The way the book was laid out was that it was from a couple of different characters' perspective. One thing that was a little confusing as far as like the writing style of it was that sometimes the narration would change in like on one page, you know, like it would go from one person thinking about something and then it would go to another person thinking about something, which was a little bit confusing at times and a little bit annoying at first, but after I got used to it, I was like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. I liked that it wasn't completely focused on Anna K. It was focused a lot on the relationships around her and how they interacted with her. And like I said, I don't remember Anna Karenina. I don't remember the story really at all. Reading it kind of like as a standalone book, I thought it was really, really amazing. And I definitely know that I would have appreciated it a lot as a teenager, because I totally read all of those Gossip Girl books, but there was no diversity whatsoever in those books. I also liked a lot of the references that they had in there to, like, you know, our American culture right now. There were certain things that went a little bit over my head because I am a mom and I'm not well versed in, you know, the cool terminology and stuff. The way that the author put it into the book, it wasn't like too much, but I felt like it was enough to where it was like, okay, this is most likely maybe a little bit exaggerated, but like the way that teens actually like talk and interact. But towards the beginning, I was feeling like it was a little slow. There was a lot of like character building. I felt like I was able to see the value in it as the story went on. And then once we started getting going in the story, it just kept going. And there was a lot of different twists and turns that happened, a lot of things that I wasn't expecting. They had one little spicy, little hot moment in the book, and I was like, okay, that's cute, I guess. And then there was another one, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Again, my teen self would have definitely appreciated it. I appreciated it. Is that weird to say? Because I'm reading a book about teens. Is that weird? It's probably weird. Let's not think too much into that. It was real good. Even if you've never read Anna Karenina, I feel like you would still really appreciate this. I feel like if someone just went into a bookstore and picked up this book and they were just like, hey, I just want to read like a teen novel, whatever, they would be very surprised by this book, in my opinion. I think there's gonna be more of a theme of Korean culture in the next books, or I hope so. Moving on to the next books. These are the actual books that were on my TBR. So to first start out, the 2 nonfiction books that I had on my TBR, I didn't end up finishing, which I wasn't really surprised about. I had Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and Nonviolent Communication, which I still have on my bookshelf. I don't know what it is about Dare to Lead. I just can't seem to finish it. I feel like I'm just like reading it and getting what I need from it. And then after that, I'm just kind of like, well, that's good for now. I'll read it again later. And then the other book, Nonviolent Communication, I haven't started that yet. It's on my TBR for this upcoming month again, and it's probably going to be on my TBR until I finish it because, again, it's something that's very important. I am reading it with my partner, and I think everybody needs some nonviolent communication in their life. I did end up finishing, I think, all of the books that I had on my TBR. The first book that I read was Ready Player One. This book is set, I would say, like in a dystopian time. It's kind of like the end of the world, society is collapsing. Big thing during this time is this essentially VR system. So this man and another man created this VR system where you can pretty much do anything. It's like, it's a virtual world. You can live your life in these places. And since the world is kind of a shithole, the majority of people are doing most of their daily activities in this space. So kids are going to school, people are going to work, people are interacting with each other, all of that stuff. They have these freaking outfits that they can put on to where they can feel like what's going on and like certain pressure point, which is wild. One of the guys who is like the main creator of it ends up dying, and he doesn't have a successor or anything. So he creates basically this entire challenge, and whoever wins this challenge is going to win his company and all of his money. So many people are in on this. So many people are trying to figure out the different like riddles and clues. And when you start out the story, it's literally been like 3 years or something like that, and nobody has figured out the first clue. So this kid is pretty much obsessed with it. He has learned about this guy's history. He's learned about his hobbies. He's learned so much about this man and the things that he likes, and mastered the games that he loves, read the books that he's read, watched the movies. And one huge part of it is the 80s references that are in the book. This is like a good and a bad thing to me. I did appreciate certain things because it's nice to be able to read a book and be like, oh yeah, I know what that is. That's cool. But also, I felt like it was a little bit excessive at times, where there could have been some more character building and like relationship building and even world building. There was an 80s reference describing something that I didn't really care about. But basically the story follows him on this journey of doing this challenge, playing this game. To me, it was extremely predictable. There were certain parts of the plot that did throw me off, catch me off guard. There were momentary moments of depth that I wasn't expecting, and so I appreciated those things. I just felt like I wanted a little bit more of them. The way that his character was, it was kind of this whole, like, I'm really bad at something, and then I become a master at it, and I'm just like, why does this have to happen every single time? Like, why can't he just be bad at something and just be bad at it? Like I said, I did appreciate certain 80s references in it, specifically the Firefly reference, because I love Firefly. It's fucking my shit. So there were two characters in the book. There were two Japanese players of the game that I feel like their story could have had a lot more depth, and I would have appreciated learning so much more about them. But it's fine. It's fine. Also, I feel like I don't think this is a spoiler, but there's like a love interest romantic situation happening in the story, and I feel like it was very rushed. I feel like it happened over the course of like one chapter, and then all of a sudden it was like love. I don't know, I just kind of felt like it was a little bit unrealistic, and also I felt like it was kind of unnecessary. So the next book is Children of Blood and Bone. I was so excited to read this book. It was so hyped up, and for good reason. Basically, the world that they're living in previously had magic, and now it doesn't have magic. So there is a certain type of person that is born with these magical abilities. They're connected to a certain aspect of magic, and basically these oppressors have taken it away from them. What's really amazing, incredible about this story is that it weaves in seamlessly the Black experience in a way to where I didn't even realize that was what was happening until after I read the book and I read like the epilogue or the acknowledgements or something where she was talking about, the author was talking about why she decided to write the book and how she wrote it, and then I was looking at other people's reviews on the book. Standalone as a book, I was like, this shit is amazing. Like being able to see a Black character, being able to see a Black cast in a book like this is just like so powerful to me and would have been so incredible for me to read growing up. Basically, the story is from 3 different characters' perspectives, which I appreciated because I was able to see different sides of everything that was going on. And even though I didn't like certain characters, I still was able to understand where they were coming from. So much happened. And it was such a fast-paced book. I finished it so much more quickly than I thought that I was going to. My mentor actually is the daughter of Oya, so it was something that I was somewhat familiar with. I had heard about Orishas and certain themes that they were talking about in the book as far as like the spiritual, like magical aspect. I just really appreciate it, and I felt really seen. This book, and along with the next book that I'm going to talk about, really made me think about my life, wanting to learn about my history and wanting to connect with my ancestors and how important it is and how it shapes us as human beings, being able to connect with our magic that comes from our ancestors and how much support they are to us. And I literally started crying at so many different parts because you could just feel that. I could feel that. I'm getting chills thinking about it, but it was such a beautiful book, and I highly suggest everyone reads it. For the next book I read was Homegoing, and I have heard a lot of really incredible things about this book for a really long time. I had just been kind of waiting for the perfect time to read it because I knew that it was going to be heavy, and especially in our current climate, there are certain times where I've been in a space where I've been ready to absorb that kind of information and kind of be triggered, but there have definitely been times where I haven't been wanting to be in that space, and I think that's totally fine. Just as a warning, there definitely are some extremely triggering topics in this book. They talk about rape, they talk about racism, there's talk about slavery, all of these things that are very real. Even being a person that is very sensitive to certain topics and certain themes, I don't feel like the author wrote it in a way to where it was like hitting me over the head with it. Basically, the story follows different people's perspectives over a span of time. So it starts with one woman, and she ends up having 2 daughters, and these 2 daughters end up on completely different paths. So one of them ends up being married to a white man, and it shows all of her children and her children's children and her children's children and how her life plays out just purely from that one decision of her going down this one path, and then her sister who ends up going into slavery, and her children and her children's children and her children's children, and their path that they end up going down. And it's so interesting to think about the fact that all it takes is one small moment. All it takes is one small event to completely alter the entire course of your life, which really is so, it's like scary to think about, but it's also extremely empowering to think about, because it's like I can literally do the smallest thing every day in order to create huge change in not only my personal life, but also in the greater collective reality as well. It was a beautiful story. It was beautifully written. It was raw. It was real. It was painful. And I was able to connect with each and every person. I think because they were all connected to each other, it was easier for me to do that. And all of their stories were like interwoven. But it wasn't like overwhelming to me. It wasn't confusing. And like I said, I was able to connect with each character on some level. Being able to have that type of character development without having to focus on one specific character is absolutely incredible to me, and was something that I was really surprised by each like chapter or like section that I was reading about every different person. I was like, wow, I really get this person, even though I haven't been with them for very long. It really solidified for me that I am definitely on the right path right now in order to connect more with my ancestors and connect more with who I am, because it is so important. Like, we don't even realize how important it is until we start doing it. And we realized that there was literally a piece of us that was missing. Especially being a Black person in America, I know that that piece of my history has been missing for so long, and I didn't realize how valuable that was to me. And I'm really seeing how important it is right now. And I know that once I connect with it, it's gonna be life-changing. And I'm really excited, and these books really got me excited about it. My Sister the Serial Killer, I actually did choose this one to read for one of the prompts for the Reading Rush readathon. I didn't end up reading it during the readathon, but I ended up reading after. This is another book that I finished very quickly, wasn't expecting it. I thought it was gonna be like a thriller or even like a psychological thriller, which I was like, okay, I'm okay with that, a psychological thriller. I think I can handle that. My little baby heart can maybe handle that. It wasn't as like thrillery as I thought it was gonna be. So basically it's about, I mean, the title pretty much says it all. It is about two sisters, and one of them is a serial killer, and basically the other one kind of helps her sister with the stuff. Trying not to tell you guys the entire plot, but it's very difficult. Honestly, I kind of felt like not a lot happened in a short amount of time. I finished it like in one day. Which I wasn't expecting. And throughout the entire book, I have an older sister, so it kind of just made me keep thinking about like, what would we do in this situation? Not that we're gonna be serial killers. If we were hypothetically in this situation, what would we do? I most likely would not be the serial killer. Just gonna say that. So I'm just thinking about like, hey, what would I do? And I would not do something very sisterly. Let's just say that. I didn't really like the ending, wasn't crazy about it, but a lot of people really did like this book. Like, I saw the reviews after I posted my review of the book, or my rating of the book on Goodreads, and a lot of people really liked this book. So check it out if you want to. I personally was not crazy about it, but that's just me. Last two books that I read were actually just like graphic novel, comic book type things. They were Lumberjanes Volume 1 and 2. Basically, it's about these kids at camp, and there's some like paranormal things that are happening. And I honestly wasn't really that crazy about them. I think I gave them like 3.5 out of 5 stars, which is very low for me. They just weren't exactly what I expected. And I don't know, I was a little let down. They were fine for like in between the other books that I was reading. But like I said, they just weren't really what I was expecting. That's pretty much everything. That's all the books that I read for the month of July. Again, I'm super impressed with all the books that I read this month. Like, I'm very happy with myself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys read some good books this month, and maybe you got some good recommendations from this video. I will be posting my August TBR coming up here soon, so look out for that. If you have any book recommendations, definitely leave that down below. And if you have any video recommendations, I would love to hear that as well. And I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. I hope you guys have a beautiful start to your month. And I hope you are able to find joy in whatever way it is that you can. I love you. Bye.